The topic we'll cover is schedule management, the processes that ensure the project is completed on time by planning, sequencing, and controlling all project activities. In waterfall projects, the schedule is planned in detail up front and then tracked closely against a schedule baseline. This means you'll need to know the tools and techniques for building a realistic and reliable schedule. Schedule management begins with plan schedule management, where the project manager defines the tools, formats, and accuracy levels that will be used to create and control the schedule. Next, you define activities by breaking down each work package from the Work Breakdown Structure, or WBS, into individual tasks that can be scheduled and measured. These activities are then sequenced to show logical relationships. On the exam, you should be comfortable with the Precedence Diagramming Method, or PDM, and the 4 dependency types: finish to start to start, finish to finish, and start to finish. The finish to start relationship is the most common. Once activities are sequenced, you move on to estimating durations. Unlike Agile, which uses relative estimation, predictive projects rely on tools such as bottom-up estimating, analogous estimating, parametric estimating, and three-point estimating, also known as PERT, to predict task duration. With dependencies and durations in place, you develop the schedule using tools like the critical path method, often shortened to CPM. This requires a forward pass and a backward pass to determine early and late dates, identify the critical path, and calculate float. The critical path is the longest path through the project, and activities on this path have zero float, which means any delay directly impacts the project's finish date. You should also understand the difference between total float, which is the amount of time an activity can be delayed without delaying the project completion date, and free float, which is the amount of time an activity can be delayed without delaying the start of its successor. Additional techniques include schedule network analysis, resource leveling, which resolves overallocation but may extend the schedule, and resource smoothing, which optimizes resources without changing the critical path. During execution, you control the schedule by comparing actual progress against the baseline using methods such as variance analysis and earned value management. Forecasts of finish dates and corrective actions are made when deviations occur, and change requests may be submitted when needed. Finally, know the 2 main schedule compression techniques. Fast tracking performs activities in parallel that were originally planned to be sequential. Crashing adds resources to activities on the critical path to complete them more quickly, usually at a higher cost. Both methods shorten the schedule but increase project risk. So in predictive projects, schedule management is about detailed upfront planning, critical path analysis, and strict control against the baseline. Now we'll move into 10 practice questions that test your knowledge of activity sequencing, estimation techniques, critical path, float, schedule compression, and how predictive projects ensure on-time delivery. Let's jump into the first question in this topic. Question 31. A project manager is leading a predictive initiative to upgrade the nationwide power grid. During the planning phase, the team begins outlining activity durations, but team members are applying different estimation techniques and documenting timelines inconsistently. The sponsor expresses concern about conflicting expectations. What should the project manager have done earlier to avoid this situation? A. Finalized a schedule baseline and issued it for stakeholder approval. B. Defined standard estimating methods and formats in the schedule management plan. C. Adopt the organization's most commonly used estimation tool. D. Facilitated a planning workshop to align estimates across departments. You can pause the video here if you need more time to work on the question. The correct answer is B. This question tests your understanding of the plan schedule management process in predictive environments. This early planning step is essential for establishing consistency in how schedule data is created, estimated, and maintained across the team. Choice B is the best option because the schedule management plan is where the PM defines the estimation techniques, units of measure, and formatting conventions that will guide the team's work. Without this, inconsistent data and misaligned expectations are likely to arise. Exactly what's happening in this scenario. Choice A is incorrect. Finalizing the schedule baseline comes much later in the process, after activities are defined, sequenced, and estimated. Choice C is incorrect. Adopting a commonly used tool doesn't ensure consistency unless guidance and standards are also defined. That's what the schedule management plan is for. Choice D is incorrect. A planning workshop might align people temporarily, but without a formal plan, inconsistencies will likely return. Well, let's move on to the next question if you're ready. Question 32. In a predictive project to build a multi-campus hospital IT network, the team has completed the work breakdown structure. A junior scheduler begins assigning durations to work packages, assuming they represent activities. What should the project manager clarify? A. Work packages represent deliverables and must be decomposed into scheduled activities. B. Work packages already reflect tasks and can be used directly in the project schedule. C. Durations are assigned only during the develop schedule process, not before. D. Activities are created during execution as work is performed and clarified. You can pause the video here if you need more time to work on the question. The correct answer is A. This question tests your understanding of the define activities process. In predictive scheduling, creating the WBS defines what will be delivered, but it doesn't yet define how or when the work will occur. That's where activity definition comes in. Choice A is the best option because work packages are deliverable focused. To build a schedule, the team must further decompose them into activities, which are the units of work that can be sequenced, estimated, and tracked. Choice B is incorrect. Using work packages directly in the schedule skips a crucial step. They are too high level to be used for scheduling. Choice C is incorrect. Duration estimation occurs after activities are defined, but activity definition comes before schedule development, not after it. Choice D is incorrect. Activities are not created during execution in predictive projects. They are defined during planning as part of structured scope and schedule development. Let's move on to the next question if you're ready. Question 33. While sequencing activities for a predictive pharmaceutical compliance project, the project manager links the submit regulatory documents activity with a start-to-start dependency to conduct final system testing. The compliance lead raises concerns about this sequencing. How should the project manager respond? A. Revise the dependency to finish to start to ensure documentation is submitted before testing begins. B. Proceed with the start-to-start link as long as both activities begin in the same reporting period. C. Add lead time to accelerate the second activity and improve delivery efficiency. D. Remove the dependency altogether to give each team more scheduling flexibility. You can pause the video here if you need more time to work on the question. The correct answer is A. This question tests your understanding of activity sequencing and dependency logic, particularly within the precedence diagramming method used in predictive schedules. Establishing correct relationships is critical to maintaining schedule integrity and regulatory compliance. Choice A is the best option because, in compliance-sensitive projects, certain activities must finish before others begin. Submitting regulatory documents is a prerequisite. Testing should only begin once documentation is complete. A finish-to-start dependency correctly enforces that sequence. Choice B is incorrect. Starting both activities at the same time may violate compliance requirements and risks rework if documentation isn't finalized. Choice C is incorrect. Lead time only accelerates an already flawed dependency. It doesn't correct the logical relationship. Choice D is incorrect. Removing the dependency may create risk by allowing work to proceed without regulatory submission. Let's move on to the next question if you're ready. Question 34. A predictive construction project is in the early planning phase to build several regional train stations. The architectural concept and major deliverables are defined, but detailed engineering drawings and resource plans are still being developed. The sponsor requests a reliable cost and duration estimate within a week to secure funding approval. Historical data exists from a recently completed project of similar scale, but with different terrain and materials. What should the project manager do to produce the estimate? A. Conduct a Monte Carlo simulation to analyze potential schedule and cost ranges before committing to a baseline. B. Apply parametric estimation, multiplying productivity rates by the number of construction units to calculate precise durations. C. Combine bottom-up estimation with contingency reserves to ensure estimate accuracy despite incomplete design data. D. Use analogous estimation, referencing the prior project and adjusting for scope differences and terrain complexity. You can pause the video here if you need more time to work on the question. The correct answer is D. This question tests your understanding of how the choice of estimation technique depends on the project phase, data availability, and required accuracy. Choice D is the best option because analogous estimation is appropriate early in planning when detailed data is limited. It relies on results from a similar previous project to produce a quick, high-level estimate, perfect for initial funding discussions. Choice A is incorrect. Monte Carlo simulation is a quantitative risk analysis tool that requires detailed inputs and is not suited for preliminary estimating. Choice B is incorrect. Parametric estimation demands reliable, standardized metrics, such as labor hours per cubic yard, which are unavailable at this early stage. Choice C is incorrect. Bottom-up estimation cannot be performed without a complete work breakdown structure and activity-level detail. Let's move on to the next question if you're ready. Question 35. In a predictive project to deploy a national rail signaling system, the project manager identifies two near-critical paths during schedule development. One path has 0 float, the second has 1 day of float. The team considers delaying an activity on the near-critical path to reallocate a specialized resource to the critical path. What should the project manager consider before approving this decision? A. The delay may convert the near-critical path into a second critical path, increasing project risk. B. Minor float on non-critical paths is a buffer and should be reallocated as needed. C. Schedule compression techniques should be applied to both paths to maintain float. D. Near-critical paths are not relevant unless the project is already behind schedule. You can pause the video here if you need more time to work on the question. The correct answer is A. This question tests your deeper understanding of the critical path method and how changes during schedule development can impact project risk. It also assesses your ability to recognize the sensitivity of near-critical paths, paths with very little float that could become critical with minor changes. Choice A is the best option because delaying an activity on the near-critical path could reduce its float to 0. This would result in multiple critical paths, raising the risk that even a minor delay could affect the overall project duration. Choice B is incorrect. Float is not a resource to reallocate casually. It's a measure of schedule flexibility and must be protected to absorb uncertainty. Choice C is incorrect. Applying compression techniques like crashing or fast-tracking before assessing impact could introduce unnecessary risk and cost. Choice D is incorrect. Near-critical paths are always relevant. They are a sign of schedule sensitivity and must be monitored throughout planning and execution. Let's move on to the next question if you're ready. Question 36. During schedule analysis for a predictive transportation infrastructure project, the project manager notices that one activity has 4 days of total float, but 0 days of free float. The engineering lead asks if this means the activity is on the critical path. How should the project manager respond? A. No, because only activities with 0 total float are considered critical. B. Yes, because 0 free float means it cannot be delayed without affecting any successor. C. Yes, because both total and free float must be 0 to define the critical path. D. No, because total float is more relevant to external dependencies than internal sequencing. You can pause the video here if you need more time to work on the question. The correct answer is A. This question tests your understanding of the differences between total float and free float, a key concept in schedule analysis. Total float refers to how long an activity can be delayed without delaying the overall project, while free float refers to how long it can be delayed without impacting the immediate successor. Choice A is the best option because critical path is defined by 0 total float, not free float. Even if free float is 0, as long as total float exists, the activity is not on the critical path. Choice B is incorrect. 0 free float means the activity affects its next task, but not necessarily the project end date. That's why it's not a critical path indicator. Choice C is incorrect. Both values don't have to be zero. The defining characteristic of the critical path is zero total float regardless of free float. Choice D is incorrect. Total float applies broadly across the schedule, not just to external dependencies. It reflects how much flexibility exists before impacting the entire project. Let's move on to the next question if you're ready. Question 37. During execution of a predictive project to expand a regional airport, the project manager reviews the latest schedule performance data and finds that 2 work packages are behind schedule. The earned value metrics confirm SPI less than 1, but the delay has not yet affected the critical path. The team urges the PM to crash both activities. What should the project manager do first? A. Approve crashing both activities to recover schedule performance proactively. B. Consult with functional managers and stakeholders to explore resource reallocation options. C. Analyze the forecasted impact to determine if corrective action is necessary. D. Update the schedule to reflect actual progress before initiating any corrective actions. You can pause the video here if you need more time to work on the question. The correct answer is C. This question tests your understanding of schedule control and how to respond appropriately to performance data in a predictive project. It emphasizes the importance of using analysis to drive decision-making rather than reacting impulsively to SPI indicators. Choice C is the best option because a project manager should always analyze the forecasted impact before taking corrective action. Just because 2 work packages are behind does not mean they require immediate intervention, especially if the critical path is unaffected. Choice A is incorrect. Crashing is a schedule compression technique that should only be applied when necessary. Doing so prematurely may introduce unnecessary cost and risk. Choice B is incorrect. While collaboration with functional managers is good practice, resource reallocation should only occur after analysis confirms it's needed. Choice D is incorrect. Updating the schedule with actuals is important, but doing so without understanding the downstream impact doesn't address whether corrective actions are even required. Let's move on to the next question if you're ready. Question 38. A predictive construction project is behind schedule due to unexpected permitting delays. To meet the contractual milestone, the sponsor asks the project manager to shorten the remaining schedule. After analysis, the PM determines that some activities on the critical path can overlap but were originally scheduled sequentially due to quality risks. What is the most appropriate next step? A. Crash the schedule by assigning overtime to all remaining activities. B. Apply fast tracking to overlap critical activities while managing the associated risks. C. Rebaseline the schedule to reflect the new timeline requested by the sponsor. D. Resequence non-critical activities to create flexibility in the overall schedule. You can pause the video here if you need more time to work on the question. The correct answer is B. This question tests your understanding of schedule compression techniques, particularly when and how to apply fast tracking in a predictive project, even when quality concerns exist. The goal is to shorten the schedule without compromising the project baselines unnecessarily. Choice B is the best option because fast tracking overlaps activities that were originally done in sequence, helping reduce the project duration. Since the project manager has already analyzed which activities can be safely overlapped, this is a justifiable next step with risk management in mind. Choice A is incorrect. Crashing involves adding resources or paying for overtime, which increases cost and may not address the specific cause of the delay. In this case, permitting. It's also less effective if activities can't be performed in parallel. Choice C is incorrect. Rebaselining should only be done after all options to bring the project back on track have been exhausted. It's not a first step. Choice D is incorrect. Resequencing non-critical activities won't help if the delay is on the critical path, which determines the project finish date. Let's move on to the next question if you're ready. Question 39. A predictive software infrastructure project is experiencing resource overallocation across several non-critical activities. The project manager wants to optimize resource usage while maintaining the original schedule and critical path. Which is the most appropriate technique to use? A. Apply resource leveling to redistribute work based on resource availability. B. Compress the schedule using fast tracking to free up team capacity. C. Adjust resource assignments on lower priority activities to reduce peaks in demand. D. Reassign critical path activities to non-critical resources to reduce bottlenecks. You can pause the video here if you need more time to work on the question. The correct answer is C. This question tests your understanding of two important resource optimization techniques in predictive project management: resource leveling and resource smoothing, and when each should be used. It also examines how these techniques interact with the critical path and schedule baseline. Choice C is the best option because it reflects resource smoothing, which reduces overallocation by adjusting work on activities with available flexibility. This approach allows the project manager to ease resource peaks without disrupting the planned sequencing of work. Choice A is incorrect. Resource leveling may delay activities and can impact the critical path because it changes activity timing based on resource limits, not schedule constraints. Choice B is incorrect. Fast tracking shortens the schedule, not smooths resource usage. It's a compression technique, not a resource optimization method. Choice D is incorrect. Reassigning critical path work can create new risks or violate skill constraints. It's not a standard or reliable technique for resolving overallocation. Let's move on to the final question in this topic if you're ready. Question 40. During execution of a predictive manufacturing project, multiple work streams are progressing in parallel, and the project manager notices discrepancies between actual and planned task completion. To address these issues, the PM wants to coordinate with the team by tracking progress, reviewing durations, and visualizing dependencies across tasks. Which of the following tools would be most effective in this situation? A. Milestone chart showing high-level deadlines for major deliverables. B. Gantt chart displaying task durations, dependencies, and progress bars. C. Approved schedule baseline used during stakeholder reporting. D. Schedule network diagram visualizing logical relationships between activities. You can pause the video here if you need more time to work on the question. The correct answer is B. This question tests your understanding of schedule management tools in predictive projects, especially how to select the right tool for progress tracking, coordination, and recovery planning. Choice B is the best option because a Gantt chart combines multiple layers of data, task durations, dependencies, sequencing, and progress updates. It's intuitive, team-friendly, and ideal for tracking and coordinating work across parallel work streams. Choice A is incorrect. A milestone chart is useful for summarizing major delivery dates, but it lacks the detail needed for day-to-day progress tracking or coordination. Choice C is incorrect. The schedule baseline is essential for comparing current progress against the original plan, but it is a static reference, not an active coordination tool. Choice D is incorrect. While network diagrams show dependencies, they are harder to interpret for tracking progress and don't include durations or progress bars. Congratulations on completing schedule management in Waterfall. You're now 40 questions into your PMP exam journey and making incredible progress. Let's keep building that momentum and move into the next topic when you're ready.